All right, we are back. It is 2022. Welcome back to another installment of the Hillen Brothers podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Brandon Jones, and I'm with the legendary Sam Simmons. Sam, how are you doing this new year?
I'm okay. With our ninth day into the year, uh, I had intended to get out the basement, but uh, the new variant said, no, not yet.
It's not happening. Yeah, this as people have been calling it, the Omarion variant has been going wild, man. It's shut
the
down everything.
yeah, old Marion had to do a video saying it ain't him. Poor dude.
He should ride this wave, get some of that government money, have him cut him a check, some vaccine promotion or something.
Hey, got that right. Yeah, got that right.
As
Shoot.
Henry Kissinger once said, never let a good tragedy go to waste, man. So gotta make it happen. Shoot, man. So there we go.
Oh my goodness. How's your life been? I mean, you got more life changes than me, I think.
Yeah, man. My New Year came in pretty well. It was pretty chill. My girls got to have a good time on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and things have been going well. The only issue that I've been having is my internet. I don't know what is going on with my internet. It's been bad. Really, it's been bad for probably about a month or so, but it got really bad this past week, just in and out, in and out. So that's why I'm not on my regular setup. I'm on the cell phone using my cellular internet. But outside of that, man, that's a first world problem. I can't be complaining. I'm a black man. We got much bigger things to be complaining about than internet access. So,
Whoa. Oh, really? Oh,
well,
really?
that's what they say. Apparently black people don't have IDs, so we can't vote. So apparently black folks, we got all types of issues, man. That's
Oh
what they
man.
tell me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't even know if I want to even
don't even
respond to.
don't even respond. It's okay.
I mean, because I hear you. Because I did my show this week, and it was interesting. And we spent part of the show. You know, the show was really about, as a community, what should we focus on this
Right.
year? And and it kind of went that one direction about how bad things are for black folks, and and I mean, it wasn't that it was they were wrong, but it was just it this was real whiny in a way, to me,
Yeah.
but
No.
people say I'm hard on people, but economically and all like this. And what was funny, one of my former clients called in, you know,
Mm.
uh, yo, Sam, this is so and so and so and so. You know me, and I knew exactly who it was. Side note, that was he was one of three clients I ever been afraid of.
Mm.
I mean, you talking about, and I've dealt with a lot of
Mm.
clients, right? But he's one of three. Done well for himself, done very well. Got his life right, married a nice church lady. He's living good, living good. So but he called in, and when he was listening to the show, he said, there's this talk about how COVID has affected the black community and all like that. He said, man, COVID been good to me. Yeah. And he said, shoot, man, the cash worked for me. Uh, I see we lost Mr. Brandon with his tech issues, and we're gonna have this kind of thing going on for a minute here and there. But yeah, he said it was good for him. He gave a different narrative,
Yeah.
in other words, and so he said the only problem is, he said, a bunch of the folks he know never saved the money they got during the
Mm.
COVID, and
Mm-hmm.
because we also got into some of the stuff we're gonna get into today around like carjackings
Yeah.
and the violence and that kind of stuff, and there was some talk that maybe the difficulties we're having with COVID contribute to folks acting out the way they are and that kind of stuff. And and we had a couple other callers, and I said, well, the caller said, well, Mr. Simmons, what do you think? And I said, well, first of all of it, I ain't going to argue with none of what y'all saying. I'm not going to do that. But we can talk all day about what's wrong. What we going to do about it? We
Yeah.
can talk all day about, the disparities because they're not going nowhere anytime soon. What we going to do about it? What is your plan? Because they were always talking about, well, you can't lock all these kids up. They took all the men out of the community back in the '90s and all this other kind of stuff, and so this can't be locking folks up. Well, thing is, my thing
Why
is,
not?
well, see,
If
the
they're
thing
harmful.
is, you know, uh, there's got to be other ways because we just don't want that to happen all over again. And I said I agree with that, but there's some folks that need to be taken off the street for their good and ours. The
Yeah.
the difference is, as I see it, is that's not the only response. But if they do that, they have to work with these young folks if they're gonna take them off the street
Right.
because they gonna keep them,
Right.
right? Because I work with young men, not real young, but 18 to 30, 18 and up.
Hmm.
And one of the things I've noticed that if you work with them and get them to start learning how to think and process in a different kind of way, they do well and they're successful
Right.
in long term, more so than not. You
Hmm.
know, uh, there's a little bit of data we have on some of the work I've done over the years that around 60-65% of the folks don't reoffend,
Right.
right? And when I run into them in the street, they're still, they'll tell you I'm not perfect, but I ain't gave up, and I'm
Right.
thinking about things differently. I'm cutting myself off from people that has and done moved into new situations, new relationships, all these other kind of stuff. I learned that just because I have a child with somebody doesn't mean that I have to stay with them and that kind of thing and try to do what's best for my child and have to deal with a legal system that I don't trust. But until I get other options, I have to do that. Right? It's not staying stuck on what I can't do.
Mm.
And so um there's got to be a balance. We don't want, we have this all or nothing kind of response to things. The system has had all or nothing responses to us without no compassion. So, lock them up and throw away the key. And that's coming back. That
Hmm.
whole sentiment is coming back, and we can
Hmm.
talk about, what people shouldn't do, but we need to come up with a plan before they come up with a plan that's going to be dropped on us, right? And that plan cannot be do nothing.
Hmm.
Okay, I mean that plan has to be multi-layered plan because there is some folks out here who need to be taken off the street temporarily for their
Hmm.
own good and for the good of the community
Hmm.
in the long run. There definitely need to be some different kind of work and conversation about family. We have we have all these rigid views about family. Right? We have these uh, 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 you know, I don't know what the word I would use is these imaginary views about what black community look like and what it used to look like. You know,
Romanticizing history.
yeah, I mean, and I know there's some people like, oh, did he really say that? Yes, I did,
Yeah.
because I can say that because I'm an old black man, and
Mm.
I've lived some of that history, and it didn't look the way people be glamorizing it in the way I grew up, right?
Right.
We have to get to a point where we have to get brave enough not to just accept certain things because people say, well, this is all I was left with. You know, uh, uh, we have to quit condoning things so that we can appear to be down for the brothers and sisters. It's a new day,
Mm.
and it's going to have to be a new day. If you want a new outcome, you got to have to have some new stuff. That don't mean that some of the old thoughts and behaviors that we had don't have a place, but they definitely got to be adjusted for this day and age. And you cannot adjust this whole kind of situation if you are not willing to deal with the emotional and traumatizing effects of our history that we keep talking about, right? But
Mm-hmm.
we refuse to deal with how really dig into how that has affected how our relationships within our community have been affected in a negative way and some positive, but we always want to talk about, try to think about all this, use the word resiliency and, and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff because we're so affected by what the negative thoughts we think white folks have or the system of us. I
Right.
cannot have that. I cannot waste my time with that thought. I got to deal with what is and what could be if I
Right.
deal with what is. And what is there's this traumatic response to family, traumatic response to systems, traumatic response to each other that is getting in the way of our own well being as a community and our own well being in terms of dealing with communities outside our community as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One thing that I want to add for what you were saying about the approach to solving this problem or working with this problem, I think there's three things that need to be present. One, we cannot be afraid of these mostly black men who are doing this work. If you're scared, you ain't gonna be able to get none of this work done. The second thing is that we can't coddle them either, right? We can't be on one end of that extreme or the other. I think that I think we have gotten really creative on some of the programming and some of the approaches to this work, but I think that we've kind of babied and infantiled and made black men so damn docile that we've learned to finesse these systems and programs where they're not effective. And then and then the third thing, we can't be extremely heavy handed either, where it's just like no nonsense because none of these dudes are scared to go to jail. Like that's not a threat to them
No,
at all. So if you're just gonna lock them up and throw away the key, that don't matter to these dudes. If you're gonna baby them, they're gonna finesse you, and if you're scared of them, you're just gonna get more of what you already have. And I see those three things showing up in a lot of the conversations I'm having. I'm at the table to a lot of these things, and it's like more of the same. No one's really thinking we need a complete reprogramming of these mostly guys. There's girls who's getting involved as well. And I don't think you mentioned the COVID thing, and I keep hearing that too. I think that's an excuse. I don't think COVID, the response to COVID or the stressors that the professionals are having are the same thing as these dudes who are out here doing the carjackings and the home invasions and the shooting. I don't think that they're having the same emotional response to COVID because I was out there with these dudes working when COVID popped off and they were not affected by it then. I don't
oh
think they're
no,
affected by it now. I think that COVID and the effects of George Floyd's murder really just created this avenue or this mindset that we can get some of this stuff off now. Like we can walk around with masks on and ain't nobody gonna question it, right? Or we can go ahead and go and run through this building, ain't nobody gonna stop us. I think it gave like a almost like an okay or cracked open that window for things to get a lot more brazen. And then people just been rolling with it ever since. And when you start to see, and especially here in Minnesota, one thing about our culture here as Black folks is we are very reactionary and we follow other leads. So when we see stuff happening in Chicago, we start emulating that. We see those things happening in DC and we see those things happening in Oakland. We say, okay, we're gonna do that too. Just like all those smash and grabs that have been going on. That was happening in other cities. And the next thing you know, we had two Best Buys get popped off just like that in like the same week because our culture here is very reactive to what else is going on. And I think what has happened, we're seeing this across the nation in all urban cities, is that COVID just allowed an opportunity to just kind of put more fuel to the fire for a lot of these dudes who were already on what they were on. Same thing with this mentality of F12, right? So for I'm using the edited version, FUCK 12. Like that's a mentality that's been in the hood for a long time. Like we don't talk to police, we don't snitch, we don't do none of that. But when you have white college kids and teachers and people on the media, in the news, and athletes, and all these people all saying F12, that just gives you more encouragement to say F12, and they ain't gonna do nothing about it. And then you're gonna go out here and just gonna be on demon time. And I think that really it's been a more of an encouraging environment since the response to George Floyd's murder.
Yeah, I mean it. Yeah, I would agree that certain attitudes intensified. Because the thing is it also made some young folks who weren't quite as brave more brave.
Exactly.
So that's why the numbers went up,
Some false
right?
courage. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we still want to have, because the thing is, we have talked about this, especially a few times last year, this thing I coined as survival stress management,
Right.
uh, you know, uh, um, based on the moment. Whatever feels good in the moment, I do.
Right.
Right. And in the short term, it helps me deal with my stress. Right. And so when you're living in that survival stress management kind of mode, um, you don't think through all that stuff in at that time, right? And if I've been on, you got folks who, what is the old term? I don't know what's the new one, but don't catch you slipping.
Yeah,
You
they're
know,
called lacking. They're
yeah,
right here lacking.
yeah, because it's like, you talk about the two extremes, right? Coddling somebody, and then you get professionals to get mad at clients who take advantage of them.
Right.
And I look at them
What
like,
else would they do?
yeah, I mean,
The
they made it
finesse
this
is,
far.
yeah, the
Then
finesse
that
is a
now,
part of it.
granted, they don't realize long term what kind of consequences that is, but in the moment, oh yeah, I done caught you slipping, right? And I caught you slipping, and right now, in between this emotional gap that we've been going through with the issues around race, the issue around policing, the issues around dealing with COVID and having your world turned upside down. There's a gap in there that folks just took advantage of,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we went from one extreme where because I've been on projects for several years where they were trying to lock up less and less young folks in juvenile court, right? And had all kind of data showing that they were locking up black kids and wasn't locking up white kids for the same crime.
Mm-hmm.
The data was there, and so the thing is how do you balance that up, right? And how do you make that a negative experience into a growing experience? If you're going to do that kind of stuff in terms of child development and those kind of things. And so, I said that you realize that there's some folks who are entertaining themselves at the cost of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you can go on Facebook and catch them. It's like, okay, so I film what I do and then I put on Facebook. Or
Mm-hmm.
I'll do a brazen crime and don't care if there's a camera. Be all in the camera, right?
Or film with
Almost
themselves.
like they're posing in all these cameras, Uh and I know that, when we were talking, you brought up the whole situation where, like, we had a situation here where a family folks was trying to take a car in front of their house, and
Mm-hmm.
they went out there and stopped them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the folks started shooting at them, and then
Right.
and they're still terrorizing them folks, aren't they?
Yeah, they came back the next day, the next morning, and shot at the house again.
It's like how dare you stop me from stealing something?
Right. How do we have neighbors in community with that? That's what I want people to answer and to think about, because we keep hearing, well, we need people to move back into the community, and we don't need police. We need to police our own communities. And when somebody steps in and tries to do that, that's the response. Like, people want to be safe, man. People want their kids to be safe. That woman whose house got shot up, her and her husband, she was the one who was speaking on the news, and you could hear the terror in her voice. And I guarantee you, she's probably going to leave North Minneapolis. And she seemed like a good lady, and they seemed like a good family. That's what you want, good role models. You got a healthy father and a mother in a home, and they don't feel safe to raise their kids there. So they're going to jet. They're going to go to somewhere else in Minnesota where they don't have to deal with gun violence like that. And we have to seriously think about this as we're dealing with this. Right now, the sentiment within the city, especially Minneapolis, is police accountability. But we have about 150 police officers that are actively on duty right now when we're supposed to have about 700. Like that, that's a big gap. So we want to bang on the police without being honest about what the real problem is in the community. There's too many guns on the street. There's too much leniency from our court systems on people once they do get arrested. We got dudes who are getting out like the next day with serious charges, man, aggravated assault, deadly weapons, all types of stuff, and they're out. And then they're just doing the same thing over and over
Well,
again.
again, that's a response, and change happens like this. That's a response to the other side when they were locking black folks up, or black men in particular, for little or no reason, without bail,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not even to justify that, but the thing is when you start making these changes, all emotional changes,
Right. No logic.
then that's no different than the guys on the street in a lot of ways. I'm
That's what I'm saying.
responding to my emotions in the moment.
That's what I'm saying. So now, I mean, in some, I don't think we have this here yet. The what is it? The no bond. I forgot the legal term for it, but the no cash bond thing.
Right.
So now, what ends up happening is we'll get a guy. Let's say he shoots at the ops or whatnot at the gas station. They finally catch up with him. They pick him up. They pick him up with a gun. He spends maybe 72 hours in jail. They lock him up. He gets out on bail. He gets another gun, or he already has another one, and he just goes back at the ops again. We know why, because he can't be caught lacking. He can't be out in the community lacking. So he has to defend himself, or he's trying to eliminate the threat that is put on his own life. And I don't think people are having a holistic conversation about this when these decisions are being made. And that's why we keep finding ourselves in these really rocky situations. I think another dangerous part about what's going on right now is the type of weapons that these young dudes have. So they're taking just regular old pistols and they're putting switches on there. I don't know. Do you know what a switch is?
No, no.
All right. So a switch is this little metal device that turns a handgun into a semi-automatic weapon. And then they also are having extended clips. So your typical gun may have 12 rounds in it or whatnot. Now you can put a 30 round clip at the bottom of it. So now you have pretty much a Uzi, as far a makeshift Uzi with a handgun. That's what these little dudes are out here rocking. Okay, so when you're hearing when the spot shotters going off, that's because they're unloading them extendo clips through them handguns. That's what's happening out here. And that's why you get all these random kids getting killed and grandmas and aunties and all these people is because they're letting off 30 plus rounds per shooting attempt. That's crazy.
Yeah, and
And
again,
that's super illegal to have those weapons too.
yeah. Well, yeah, and that's absolutely true. You know, but again, I cannot overemphasize enough about this personal entertainment from
Mm-hmm.
terrorizing other people.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, so what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about. I think we're talking about generational trauma that's undealt with, honestly, within the community,
Mm-hmm.
right? We will talk about, well, this happened, the community this, the community that, or the system this is that. But we need to dig deeper into what kind of effect has that had on family life. Well,
Right.
especially this last 40 years, right? We want to when we talk about historical trauma, we go back to slavery and all this, Jim Crow and all this other kind of stuff. But I really believe the last 40 years really blew up what was left of what we believed the black community was,
Yeah.
and in our coping mechanism. I
Mm-hmm.
believe it was already fractured in the early 70s. The
Mm-hmm.
fracture really started happening in the early 70s,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it got blown out the water in the middle 80s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we haven't recovered because we didn't have a way to recover, right? Because our way of dealing with this historical trauma was to roll with the punches, not stop and look at the repercussions, right? Not stand back and look at how it affects us as a people, not just externally in terms of how we deal with the systems, but internally, right? Uh, and how we've been forced to just accept certain behavior out of leadership, uh, out of family, out of neighborhood, and that kind of stuff. And people say, "Well, why are you being so hard on the black community?" That kind of stuff. I'm not. I'm just saying things that need to be said that are being said behind closed doors in many households.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Think about this. We talk about those young men who came back and shot at the woman's house or the family's house,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how appalling that is, right? That same behavior also shows up in community meetings.
Mm-hmm.
If you speak up against the so-called norm about community leadership, you will get attacked.
Yeah.
If you start
Brazenly.
talking about you start talking about parent responsibility, you'll get attacked depending on where you at.
Mm-hmm.
And so how is it that yeah, it is more, it's deadly and it's dangerous in terms of what we see with our young folks, but there a lot of them are mimicking our adults who are doing the same behavior just without guns.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you take time and say that I need to take care of myself and set boundaries on my people, I get attacked for setting boundaries. I don't want to be that type of black, whatever you say, keeping it real. I don't want to be that.
Mm-hmm.
I like who I am because it's working for me and my family. And so, because again, to try to make some sense out of this, what I'm saying is we always want to talk about the system doesn't treat us like human beings. And that has been true. And as we can see with the Arbery situations, that still happens. But one of the things that also makes us human is that we hurt and we suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't deal with the effects of that suffering or that hurt, you're denying your humanity. Now, the trauma might not be your fault, but the healing is your responsibility. And you cannot heal when you deny it.
Right.
But historically, we would always we always say crazy stuff like, if this happened to white folks, they would kill themselves. But we ain't talking about white folks.
Yeah.
We're
And
talking
let's
about us.
even that statement's wow. It's like
Oh,
we're so preoccupied with what how white people think, feel, and everything. We can't heal. We can't even get beyond our own selves,
I mean, you can't. I remember what 20 years ago, I was doing a little march in my hometown. They were having a lot of issues with the domestic violence in the black community, and my hometown only has 60,000 people,
man.
right? So it ain't a bunch of black folks, but they were so concerned. The women in that town were so concerned about domestic violence. They called me and a partner to come in and meet with the men and that kind of stuff. And one of the sayings when we were doing our little march, one of the few times I've ever marched, you know, uh, was domestic violence starts in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Violence in the streets starts in the home. Now, that some people, well, that's kind of dramatic or whatever, think about it. If I'm not being able to uh, 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 feel safe there because of some of the and see and what we don't we also haven't always put a handle around some of the hard ways we have dealt with our children. We have justified, especially in the past, we have to be hard on them because the system is going to be twice as hard on them,
Hmm.
right? But that has to change. Where do I feel safe at? If I don't feel safe, you ain't gonna be safe.
Right.
And so the fight is not just external in terms of systems, but there's a bigger fight internally because it's the most difficult fight. It's like a couple of weeks ago, well, actually less than a week and a half ago, a mother turned her son in for
Hmm.
trying to uh, uh,
He
uh,
wasn't
uh,
trying to. He did. He robbed that old lady.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
she
she was
kept her
going into
purse.
Audie's.
She held on to the purse. I let the purse go on, but she held on to
She
the
got
purse.
dragged.
He dragged her across the ground and all this other
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And the mama called the police. We get that mention. You know the white folks just loved it. You
Hmm.
know, but we ain't heard no more about that, have you?
Mm-mm. Nope. Not at all. But again, I mean, to be honest, we're gonna need more of that, unfortunately, because like we keep saying, we need to police ourselves, and they're coming in here, terrorizing us. I've heard people say white folks are hunting us. I'm like, what? What are we talking about here? Listen, we're we have to if we're going to get better. Some of us are going to have some realistic engagements with our children and our neighbors and our friends and our family members. And what I mean by that is some intervention. Doesn't mean we need to harm them, but we need to try our best to get them to stop. And some of these, and it's mostly young men, but some young women too. But some of these young dudes are so far gone down the rabbit hole, man. Like they are on demon time, is what we call it. They're like they don't care. They really don't care. They don't have a really foresight. They have what we call foresight in future. They're not thinking about any consequences. It's like survival stress management times 10, man. Like they're just out here,
Right.
ready for whatever, death, life, fun, whatever. They don't.
Whatever
They're
feels good
just.
in the moment, no matter who it hurts. Period.
I need to get mine.
Yeah.
That's the mentality,
I
and that's dangerous. Go ahead.
Yeah, because the thing is, if I'm not even thinking about my life, again, when we talk about when we on Friday when we're talking about the difficulties Black folks are having, the disparities, economic disparities, historical, and it's all fact. Um, it it really was interesting when it was brought up that you got all these open jobs, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and 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 I said, I got young men that I deal with weekly. There's a portion of them who do not want to work no job.
No.
And so you're gonna sit here and tell me they out trying to get their money, man, get their money, but they don't want to work no job,
Mm-hmm.
right? So because getting a job ain't as much fun, ain't as much fun as terrorizing somebody.
Right.
That don't show well on Facebook, on TikTok, and all the other kind of stuff, right? And I'm not saying that's what's being done in terms of that, but the issue is when you live a survival stress management life, you're so your level of emotional response is so low, you need it's almost like a drug, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm so depressed, I need something so over the top to get me to feel alive that is like let me take the best drug in the world, and one of the best drugs in the world is I need my so excited, and my so excitement is done through something over the top for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the same thing when you see in the mainstream community where you get folks who are like, why the hell you gonna climb a mountain? What the hell benefit is that? Why the
Mm-hmm.
hell you jumping out of the plane? What the hell is that? Right? It's the
Mm-hmm.
same. It's the same result. The
High
adrenaline
adrenaline.
rush,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? Just from a whole different. Instead of coming, it's coming from the gut up, not down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like if I'm not doing something over the top with this in this way, then I don't feel alive.
Right.
You know, I mean, I got a former client of mine who shot a dude over a comment or so-called
Mm-hmm.
disrespect of one of his partners.
Mm-hmm.
Shot him 15 times.
Yep.
One of the dudes, I don't know if it was a Facebook comment or whatever. One of his partners got disrespected, and you know, he got disrespected, and he calls up his boys and tell them what happened,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and the dude calls his boys up, and one of the boys was one of my former clients, right? and
Mm-hmm.
and and they had been drinking and getting high, and and they said, "Yeah, man, we need to go find him." And they knew him. Evidently, they knew dude. Went to his house, right,
Wow.
and roughed him up and that kind of stuff. And my former client brought his gun. Now he ain't even supposed to have a gun, but if he
Right.
a former client of mine, I mean he on probation,
Right.
right? And I remembered him. I wasn't surprised because I kept talking to him, man, why you keep living in that street on that street? He was smart, but why you keep he was almost like, you remember, I know I'm all over the place. You remember that scene in New Jack City with Pookie?
Yeah.
And and,
Keep
and, and
calling
it
me,
keep
man.
and, and it keep on, and man, it keep calling me, man. It keep
Yeah.
calling me, man. It keep calling me. Dude would sound like that in group, right? Because
Yeah.
he had been, got shot in his foot. I said, man, you got all this stuff going on with you. Why you keep hanging out with them, man? I
Right.
don't know. And it was, and his excuses was almost, I man, I've been this way. It runs in the family, and man, but it just, keeps attracting me. So back to the finish of the story. So he brings his gun. I don't know if his boys know he brought his gun. Remember, they had been drinking and getting
Right.
high and all the other kind of stuff. They roughed the brother up, and next thing you know, he pulls his gun out. The other two dudes are freaked the hell out,
Oh, man.
and he shoots the guy 15 times. Now, when I first heard this story and they said three guys, I thought it was an execution,
Yeah.
where they just went out with three guns and just shot him, 15
Mm-hmm.
times, they just went out and shot dude. Found out it was one dude who shot. It freaked the other two out so bad they testified against him.
Mm. Yeah. And with that murder charge, the guy died.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't want. They don't want to be accessories to murder.
Oh, they still got charged.
Sheesh.
If you're in the vicinity, I don't know what they got charged with, but if you're in they all got charged. But if you're in the vicinity, you're gonna get some kind of charge. You know,
Mm.
but it freaked them out. You know, um, and but it's that kind of stuff. How do you get to the young people? And see, the other thing is we always are in response, reactionary to
Yeah.
these kind of problems, especially in our community, right? The other thing is, what are we doing on the front side?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a dual approach.
Yeah,
We
with
have
the
to.
little brothers and sisters.
Yeah. We got to be way proactive. Honestly, I think. I think um, the approach has to be more upstream. We have to get to the younger kids and invest into those elementary school age kids and and try to help the families develop some structures so that this doesn't become a option for most of those youth. I think the guys who are already involved, the best things we can try to do is keep them safe, try to deter them from living in this lifestyle. But some of these dudes, this is all they ever have known, and it's gonna be hard to change. It's like trying to change somebody's culture. You have to either you're gonna have to remove them from the environment, put them into a new environment, and have them get reprogrammed, or you're gonna have to just do your best to contain them, and hopefully they don't become victims or perpetrators of gun violence at the end of the day. But to me, I think the approach is dual. It's not just, who said it? It's easier to raise strong children than repair broken men. Somebody said that. I don't remember whose quote that is, but that's kind of the situation I feel like we're in. These young people have gone through so much trauma that it's normalized.
Right.
Be, these young people they're used to hearing gunshots, and they're not afraid for the most part of being shot at or being the shooter. A lot of these dudes is just, this is where they're at,
Well,
and they're 19.
they're not only used to gunshots, they're also used to being threatened.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why jail's not scary to them. That's like
Right.
a timeshare or some shit. Like they out here.
Well, hey, I've had dudes who've done time and admitted if they hadn't done the time, they wouldn't have made it to 20 or
Exactly,
25
and
years old.
that's, I'm thinking about how tragic that statement is. My safety, my ability to live my life and see the age of 20, 21 years old was based on me being confined as a prisoner. That is a sad statement, but that is a reality for a lot of young black men, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, but and then for all of you who are listening, I still think we should do what we do to address system issues. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
But we cannot do one or the other.
yeah. It's a both
Right.
and
And we love to do one, but the other is lacking.
yeah, and honest, and I would say that in order to do both, we have to be honest and be okay with the truth hurting our feelings, because we can sit here and bang on police and white folks all day, but we a lot of our issues are internal, and we are not ready to have that conversation.
Internal as a result of the past.
Sure,
See,
but he
and
gets
see,
stuck there.
yeah. See, we get to see. I want to make it clear to people because people like to make judgments. I don't
Yeah.
actually at this point I don't give a damn really, but we're not ignoring the past.
Right.
This is you got to understand. We have to address the effects on us as
Yeah.
a people due to the past.
Due to that, yeah. And don't get stuck in the past.
Yeah.
That's like what you said earlier about us, being willing to just move forward with the truth. Like, I think a lot of us, we just want to stay stuck. Like, when we see this in the trauma work, historical trauma work, people just want to stay stuck talking about slavery. They don't want to talk about anything after. They just want to talk about what happened on the plantations. And it's like, we have to move along to see how all these things are interconnected. It wasn't just one thing that has led us to this dynamic that we're at today. So, yeah, it's fascinating, man. But again, we got to have a holistic conversation about this. I mean, we got to be honest. We got to if we want to really tell some truths and shame some devils, we're gonna have to really do it.
And it can't be just a comedy line.
Yeah.
You always hear about the comics, the great comics tell the truth or whatever, blah 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 blah.
Right.
But this is not no joke. It stopped being a joke a long time ago, right? And again, there's many people who are having these conversations, but they are scared to have them out loud.
Yep.
Or I wouldn't say another way to put it. They think it's a waste of time to have them out loud. So they hunker down,
yeah,
take care of their family, move to the suburbs, and take their chances with the white people.
Which is not a bad chance to take because when you got bullets flying over your head, a lot of folks are okay with it. But see, I don't even know if that's the quote unquote right thing to do either. And I'm one of those people in that position. But at the same time, being silent doesn't help the issue. But what I know why those folks are silent, because when they do speak up, they're called names, they're ousted, they're told that they don't care about the community and all this other stuff. when really they're just a lot of times, not everybody, but a lot of times they're just giving some honest feedback about what's going on. Now there are people who go to the extreme and they just don't like black folks and they black themselves, but they those folks have a loud megaphone and a voice because they're supported by other people with racist views. But if you support your own folks who are trying to help you and they're telling you truth, you're gonna get a different outcome. And they're not all coons and Uncle Tom's and all this other, the bedwenches and all these other names that people give folks.
But over the years, and maybe this is my age, those folks that you mentioned who actually don't like black folks in general,
Mm-hmm.
who are black, ironically, I understand them too.
Mm-hmm. They were hurt,
They were hurt.
usually by black people,
Well,
a
no,
lot.
usually was.
Yeah. I was trying to be soft. Now trying to get.
No, don't be soft because the thing is,
No, just
and I recognize that because I could have been one of them.
mm-hmm.
Black folks wasn't nice to me when I was growing up.
Mm.
Not in the neighborhood I was in.
Yeah.
And the other, and then you notice and you step back and know, and they wasn't nice to you when they wasn't nice to me. And part of the reason they wasn't nice to me, I didn't want to act like them.
You're right.
And that's where you get that what I call uh, 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 there's a term I have for that about trauma, reflective trauma.
Mm.
If I look at you doing something than me, I take it personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now all of a sudden, okay, so I'm not out there running the streets. I get up and go to school and that kind of stuff, right? Now you mad at me because I'm doing the right thing. What's that about? That ain't about me. That ain't about me. That's about what it makes you feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And that reflective trauma has went up. It has increased 20-fold over those 50 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because again, you getting mad at me, you want to take my life because I called out your behavior.
Right.
That ain't about me. That's about you,
Yeah.
and that makes you dangerous, right? And so the thing is I can that's the reason I can understand. I could have went to the dark side myself because you black person, you doing the right stuff. I go to class. I wear my nerdy glasses.
Right.
I'm more concerned about getting grades than I am if I got the new Javos or whatever the hell it is today, Gucci, right?
Montclair.
Or and then I go to church every Tuesday and Thursday, and I'm not into fighting and doing all kind of crazy things to girls when and then I hang out with white folks and they act like they like you because they can trick your ass, right? Because at least they ain't calling you out your name. Now they don't invite you to their house. You figure that out later on. Or there's some other stuff they done sabotage behind closed doors on your ass, right? They might have not called you nigger, but they treated you with nigger intentions, and so it's an emotional roller coaster especially being black in America,
Yeah. It's
right?
that third consciousness.
Right. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
and so I can understand it. I mean, I understand it so much. There's an exercise, and I haven't done it lately. I should do it regularly. Uh, to have black folks once we get an understanding when I talk about trauma, what we're talking about, and I'll ask them. I said, make two lists. Now that you know what trauma is, think about your own life and make two trauma lists. Trauma that you contribute to white people, not the system, but white people, and trauma that you contribute to black people that's been committed to you against you. More often, the black list is longer. What do you do with that?
Mm-hmm.
And and people's response to that, even with black on black violence, because there's some technicalities to that. Well, statistically, this is one of the few times black folks like statistics. Statistically, you're always going to commit crimes with people who are familiar with you, or you're familiar with, or you live with. Because it's true in the white community too.
No, it's not.
But
Not
all
gun
that,
violence.
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but that ain't true for gun violence. That's not
But but but
true.
but in terms of numbers, the whole thing about
Yeah,
black on
I know
black,
what you're saying.
yeah. But again, instead of looking at that, what kind of dialogue, what kind of structure, what kind of piece do we have to do that in a healthy way to address that trauma we experience within our own family, our own community, with our own black people?
Right.
What do
We
you do
haven't.
with that?
We
And
haven't done
and
anything.
what we've done with that is nothing. We
Yeah.
keep talking about this everybody else. Those things we really can't do nothing about, right? Like systems, we're not gonna do. We ain't gonna change that in the short term. There is some responses that if we address some of them things that within family and community, we could get results from
Right.
quicker
Right.
in the short term.
Right.
But it's the most emotionally painful thing to do. So I understand
Hmm.
why we don't do it, but I also understand that if we don't do it,
We won't get no better.
we ain't gonna get no better.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question when we wrap up these last few minutes. What do you think is contributing to some of this, the brazen acts that we've seen within the community? I mean, we're seeing people literally shooting in broad daylight, carjacking in broad daylight, home invasions. They're robbing Lyft and Uber drivers and Door Dashers, and I mean, it's the worst that I've seen in my lifetime. I'll say it though. I mean, I was a little kid during the Murderopolis times, so this is like a whole nother level. But we are seeing record numbers of gun violent murders across the country. Philadelphia had 560. Chicago had like, what was Chicago's number? It was like seven something. It's like, god damn. Minneapolis, we tied the record for, I think it was 90. Was it 93? Our record 92, 93. Tied it with 97. St. Paul had what, almost 50.
But see, you're only talking about murders,
I know, not even the people who didn't die from getting shot.
right?
That's just the people who
Yeah, because
died
you
from
had
getting
almost
shot.
almost close to almost 1,000 folks get injured.
Shot.
Yeah,
Yeah, that. Now, so what do you think? And we're just talking gun violence at this
right.
point. What do you think is contributing to this new, like, just out in the open, not caring? Like, this doesn't matter. Just like it's on site for real now. What do you think is contributing to that? Do you think it's COVID? Do you think it's black people just saying to hell with it? We out here. What do you think is going on, Sam?
Well,
What the
I
hell's
mean,
going on, Sam?
hey, now see, now you want me to answer all that in 4 minutes,
Yeah.
Uh, Well, the thing is the sum of all the above. But
Mm.
the thing is it some of this has always been there, right? And
Yeah.
it's always been in our community. See, that's
Yeah.
the interesting
That's
thing. It's always been in our community,
yeah.
and what COVID done, it allowed it to spread outside the community.
Yeah.
Okay,
Golden Valley,
right.
Egan,
It allowed it to
Woodbury.
spread outside the community. And the other
mm.
thing, one thing that COVID did is really um, really made it clear that government don't give a shit.
Mm. Okay.
Why should I?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. The
It's
main
all about
authority
who
don't care. So.
it's all about who got the money, baby. No
Mm.
matter how long you got it,
Yeah.
right?
And I'm
And,
out
and
here, so let me get mine.
right.
Mm.
And it also
Boy.
in a way, and I know this is not an intended outcome, uh, gave permission to act out your grievance against the system, whoever you
That's what I think.
decide is the system.
That's what I'm thinking.
Gave you
It's
permission to
just
act out your grievance.
you've been given a social acceptance to just go out here and make it happen, whatever you
Right.
think that is.
And so and
Wow.
again, it's not something that wasn't there. It's been there. We've been, it's the canary in the coal mine, right? It's always been there. But now that it done ooh, it's like a volcano. That stuff been oozing all along. But that's now that it's oozing. Now that we have to now that because of COVID we got to pay attention to things more, and so we end up with two crazy responses without the third one. And one is all or nothing,
Yeah.
right? So we go back, and so now people regretting back to we want to lock up all you Negroes, and y'all need to know your spaces. But we have to if we continue to be reactionary, that's a problem for everybody, and even a bigger problem for us as black folks.
Right. Because
We're
we don't
gonna
got no
lose that
plan.
battle,
We don't got no plan.
right?
Everybody else got somewhat of a plan if they don't
Yeah,
have a
but
full
see,
one.
but we are the plan for everybody else.
And bingo. And we fail to recognize that.
Right? We
And
are
we
the
fail to
plan.
recognize that.
Even if we ain't the cause of whatever is going on, we gonna be part of that plan. Okay, and not in a good way.
And not yeah.
Okay,
Not the way we think we're gonna be a part of it.
it's that smoke and mirror shit. Okay, we'll focus on
Oh
all these
man.
black folks over here and still rob you as a landlord, rob you as a company, rob you as a government. But we're gonna and that historically we've always been the pawn. We've been the
That was
puck
our
of
whole
America,
existence was to be the pawn.
right?
Permanent underclass, labor force.
So
But, but we better be careful. I'll say this in and out. We better be careful because the economy has shifted again. We are in the fourth industrial revolution. The things that they needed Negroes at the time for, they don't necessarily need Negroes for today. The robots and the technology is here to replace a lot of the labor, and so are other groups. And we are in a dangerous position as a people. And I don't think we even are realizing what's going on. But
okay,
not to be all doom and gloom, but just to be honest, I, we got a lot of work to do, and the gun violence is not helping. We're seeing record. I think we're going to have a worse 2022 when it comes to gun violence than 2021. If you look at 2020, 2020 spiked, 2021 outspiked 2020, and without any intervention, I think we're going to have a really dangerous, deadly year here if we don't do something quickly. And it's going to take community to really be honest about what's going on, and we got to save we got to save the future of our children at the end of the day because they don't deserve to deal with this craziness that's going on. Man. It's sad and it's really bad out here. But on that note, any final thoughts from you, Sam, as we close out our first show of 2022?
no, not at this point. We'll see y'all next week.
We'll see y'all next week. Thanks you for checking out the Hillen Brothers podcast. Be sure to share the episode with people that you care about and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are out. We will see you next week, next Sunday, 3 p.m. Central Time. Peace. That cat is crazy. That's a funny cat.